All right, welcome to TMC Live episode 10. While Alikchi yawns through the intro, I am Scaurus, and I am joined, of course, by Alikchi, the diva, has returned among us, and the ever lovely Nystrik. We're all professional now. We all have green screens, but we don't know how to use them, so get adjusted to that fact. We have a pretty good show for you today. Probably the best show we've ever done. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Tomorrow, Rhea comes out in EVE Online, and we're all very excited about this. So I think we'll probably just jump right into this. Who wants to give the rundown? Alikchi, you want to give the rundown of everything that's going to be in this patch and educate the masses?
Sure, I would love to educate the masses. So, Thera, Shattered Wormholes, 101 new wormhole systems with a mix of null-sec, high-sec, low-sec, and wormhole mechanics. So that's pretty cool. I think that's the flagship feature, probably. New star map, new 3D star map, although that's an opt-in, so you can still use the old one. Let's see here, what else they got? The bowhead, which is like a souped-up orca.
Bowhead.
Oh,
Can we
I apologize. Hang on a second. I'm pretty sure it's bowhead.
I'm pretty sure
You
we
are not
decided
going to
last
do
time
this
it
to
was
me.
a vote, and it was
Yeah,
we,
yeah. Oh,
we
yeah,
decided
you were
bow,
outnumbered.
and you said bow. So,
I can't remember this being a democracy, though.
oh, that's a good point.
We'll
Yeah,
go
fair point.
bowhead. We'll say it the dumbest way possible.
Okay.
Bowhead. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Thanks
then.
for indulging me.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, the the bowhead, is it's basically a ship transporter, an assembled ship transporter. You can carry 2 or 3 fitted battleships in around, or God knows how many destroyers in its giant SMA. Basically designed for incursion runners. The new Amar Tech 3 destroyer, which is the first of 4, which I guess are going to be parceled out over the next 3 expansions, so 3 months or so. Switches between modes, sniper mode, speed mode, and tanking mode, basically. Yeah, is there anything else major? Those are the ones that are most salient to me.
They're changing a little bit with corp stuff, like in alliance stuff, like with how you invite and kick people. Like, oh, they're giving it a few tweaks. So
There's also,
that's-
there's a lot of things. There's clone changes, right? Also
Yes.
coming. No more clone upgrades. Really happy about that. Especially the older you are in the game, the more ecstatic you should be about that change. I know last episode, it was a couple weeks ago, but we kind of ran down what we were most looking forward to. This new star map thing that was, the details were just announced pretty recently here. I'm actually pretty excited about that. Like, that as mundane as that sounds, it's kind of climbed up the list here for me anyways. I don't know how many details we actually got. Have people seen this? Is this on the test server? Have we already seen footage of this?
It's on test, and there was a dev blog this past week. It's looking semi-functional right now. You can zoom all the way out to like the galaxy view, and then zoom in, and you can see the solar system view seamlessly. So you can see, the planets and the other warpables in the system. It's pretty cool looking. I'm not sure how much more or less useful it is than the standing map, but CCP did promise in the dev blog that they are working on a Dotlan style map, an in-game Dotlan style map, which I'm pretty sure I would be using exclusively.
Yeah.
So that's
I don't
pretty
have
exciting.
to tab out. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. My problem with the standing map isn't so much the usability anyways, it's that it's really slow for some reason. Like, you click it, it takes like 2 seconds to load what is in essence a static map. It's faster, frankly, to tab over to your browser and look at Dotlan.
Yep. I agree.
So we finally got some specs on the Tech 3 destroyer that's coming, right?
We did.
Did anybody look at those and understand them?
Oh, I looked at it. I'm not very good at crafting, though. That counts me out. Anything with numbers, suddenly I'm like, what?
Oh,
You watched video on this, right, Alikchi? Like, you are probably
Yeah.
the most well-qualified person on this show that is at least half about Eve every single week to talk about a big addition to Eve.
Yeah. Well, it's it's one of those things where until the EFT Warriors really get their hands on it, and with the stats being tweaked pretty much up to the day of release, it's hard to make a real verdict. But from what I've seen of the Confessor, which is the name of this Amar Tech 3 destroyer, the bonuses are huge to switching between your modes, is what they're called. Like, I think one of them is when you switch to sniper mode, you get a 66% increase in scan resolution.
Wow.
So, yeah, and like
100% bonus
100%.
to sensor strength. Yeah.
Yeah, and targeting range goes up, I think, another 100%. It's insane the sort of things you'll be able to do on the fly, I think. Whether it's, they planned for Tengus to be like this one-size-fits-all thing. I'm pretty sure what's going to happen, at least in nullsec, is somebody's going to figure out a doctrine for it, and they'll be in sniper mode, and they'll never be out of sniper mode except when they're like jumping through gates or whatever. That's just how nullsec works. But in an environment with smaller gangs, low sec, faction warfare, wormhole space, I think you could do some really interesting and surprising stuff with it.
It's one of the things that I kind of had an issue with when they first unveiled this at Eve Vegas, was the fact that there's going to be a small percentage of like elite solo PvPer types that do amazing things with this ability to switch between modes, but for regular Joes and Janes across the universe, like, this is going to be something that you will build towards a sniper. Like, you'll build a sniper Confessor.
Mm-hmm.
The mods that you fit to this ship will reflect the role that you want to use it in, and that's the only mode that you're really ever going to use, unless maybe like you hit the tank button as an oh shit kind of I'm gonna die, or if this is a really close fight or something. I don't see it being used in the manner that they seem to think people will use it.
Yeah. I mean, it does, like, if you're, say, using it as a sniper and somebody warps in on you close, you can go into tanking mode and, you lose the sniping bonus, but you don't need it anymore. What you need is the tank. Or if you need to get away from that person, you can go from sniping mode into speed mode, whatever it's called. So I think it's not going to be, like, it's going to be very, very, very situational and on the fly. But it's, like you say, that doesn't change the underlying fit of the ship, which will be geared to a specific task. That's just the way fits work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swiss Army knives do not work in Eve.
It's possible that you could just see Confessor exclusive fleets, because like sometimes you'll have different types of ships in a certain fleet to, fulfill different roles. So you could just have all Confessors filling all those roles. So I mean, that's interesting, that you have a ship that can do that.
Well,
but at the same time, I agree that, you'll pick one mode that is, and there will be one mode that, theory crafters will decide is the best bang for your buck. And that's, if you don't do that, you're an idiot, because that's the way theory crafting works. If you don't do the best thing, you're bad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suboptimal, I think, is the word.
Yes, that's the word. Thank you.
It is interesting in a way because, you bring up a good point in that if you are coming up against a Confessor, you're not going to know what kind of Confessor this is.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you visually confirm it. Yeah.
Right. Unless you can look at what mode it's in, like, on the field, at which point, like, you've probably already made a commitment to that fight, and it's probably a little bit too late to change your mind.
Probably.
It's kind of similar to Tech 3 cruisers, in that you can tell their configuration by looking at them visually, but until you see them visually, you don't really know what kind of Tengu you're warping in on, or what have you.
Right.
I mean, so it does add an element of, like, suspense, I guess, to fighting these things. But in terms of flying them, yeah, it's going to be a min-max job all the way. Like, people are just going to figure out exactly how you should be flying this, and if you don't fly it that way, you're going to end up, like, in an A-LOD here in a couple months on the site.
Yep.
I look forward to that.
So, Rhea's not the only big thing that CCP has kind of rolled out here in the last week or so. We'll do the little thing first, because I wrote the article on it, and for better or worse, industry teams are going away completely. They're gonna take them out of the game. they've decided that not enough people are using them, and it's not providing the right kind of complexity and value that they want in the game. And so they're doing the unprecedented thing of, instead of just letting it lay out there for the 1% that actually bother to use it, they're taking it out of the game. And that's kind of a really important shift in philosophy, I think. Because if you apply this backwards to, like, the first iteration of faction warfare.
Yeah. It sat around for what, 4 or 5 years?
4 or 5 years in a totally broken, just not very fun, like, useless state.
You only did it if you were a role-playing masochist, basically.
Right. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the type that were drawn to it. And then they finally got around to dedicating some development cycles towards it, and they got it into a really good state. Obviously, this is a much smaller scale feature than faction warfare ever was under any implementation, so that's not to say that, you know, if this was CCP back then, they would have actually taken out faction warfare. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
But it is interesting and heartening in a way, that they don't want to let these kind of half-baked, poorly implemented kind of features just sit out there and linger and become a constant, like, festering sore on the game that people latch onto over time, which is exactly what would happen because everyone's very bitter about everything.
I mean, I'm happy to see that philosophy change. You know, there's nothing worse than having a feature that either doesn't work or works against what the team that designed it was going for, and to just have it be in the game anyway.
Yeah, dead weight.
You know, yeah, and there's no reason. I mean, obviously, there's no real reason for it to be there, but there's no real reason for them to take it out. But they've made the call to say, you know what, we're only going to go with things, or it seems like they're beginning to make the call. We're only going to go with things that are good and make sense in the game, and really fix the quality of life for all players everywhere. So maybe they'll bring something back with industry teams, but change it up a bit and make it better. Or something, and they're just going to take it out for now and then throw something else out there later that fulfills that role in a better manner. Who knows?
I think it's sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's really interesting because in that thread, like, it's pretty obvious that they've made the decision to pull this out. They wouldn't announce something like that without being committed to it, but they did leave wiggle room in that, you know, they were asking for feedback, like, what's the best way for us to handle this? And that thread actually instantly generated a bunch of suggestions that were really useful in ways in which the industry teams could be made to work well in the system and be worth the investment. Whether or not that's something that CCP can ever do, because some of those suggestions were basically just make them insanely better, like make them 10% bonuses instead of 1% bonuses, and it's well, that's kind of, you know, game breaking in a way. But people rightfully, like, kind of slagged the auction method of securing an industry team, which I never frankly understood why that is even a thing.
Bidding it up to some insane level.
Yeah, and to win the rights to have it in your system. So it's like not even, it's just...
What is this, ArcAge?
Yeah, what is this? What is this? Some shit game nobody cares about.
I think, I think it is kind of another unintended consequence of the faster development cycle as well, because, you know, if this was like one of the features of EVE's 2 expansions per year, you could say, oh, wow, they're really taking a step back. They're really taking a hit. This is one of the little things that they threw in with, I don't even remember which patch, but it must be 4 or 5 ago. Yeah, so it doesn't hurt to see it taken away. Now, part of that is because it's, as they said, not a really well-used or well-liked feature, but they're more flexible now. They can take this out, they can put it back in at some future point if they decide to rework it. I think, and I say this pretty much every show, but Seagull done right with that dev cycle.
I think we're all thinking or saying that at this point.
Well, I mean, I had significant doubts at the beginning of this. Like, you know, how is this really going to work? Like, lots of companies are shifting towards this, like, very fast iteration cycle.
And it hasn't worked for a lot of them.
Yeah, and it doesn't. And I mean, it always kind of does a little bit. But it doesn't do so in such a way that you can come out and say, look, guys, the game is completely different. It's so much better now because of this expansion. Instead, you're like, oh, well, there's been like 7 or 6 patches in the last, year or so, and the game is slowly getting better. Like, that's a much more mundane message to send out. It's not very exciting to players.
Right.
Even when it is going well, it's not all that exciting. But CCP seems to be nailing a nice balance of every patch coming out has 1 or 2 things that get a lot of people pretty excited, and then it has a bunch of smaller things that may or may not work out. And then they can do stuff like this. Like, that's a great point. They can walk back some of this stuff without being so committed to it. And I'm sure that plays into like internal politics and all that kind of stuff too. It's just, this was just a thing we tossed into a patch. Like, if it doesn't work, we just take it back out.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
but it's good. I think it's good to see that they're going to do that, because one of the first worries I had about this new release cycle was, okay, you're going to force things out every 6 weeks. What happens when they're not ready? Well, the answer is they're going to go in, they're going to put it in, it's going to be out there for 6 weeks, and then they're going to realize this is not having the impact we intended, this is not working as we intended, let's take it out, look at it again, and maybe put it back in if we find a way to make it work. So that's confidence boosting, in that we know that if something goes in that is not working properly, they have no problems yanking it and fixing the problem, so to speak.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of working as intended, for many, many years now, Isboxer and broadcast, or input broadcasting in particular, has been totally okay.
Yes.
Nobody from CCP has ever come down on that. It's been an accepted facet of the like really dedicated 0.5% of the game that run hundreds of clients at any given time. No more. No more of that.
None of this.
For whatever reason, like input so this kind of breaks down into some interesting ways. Input automation, which is what we call botting, has obviously always been off the table. Like, you cannot automate your playing of the game because that's just not fair.
Right.
Input broadcasting, you're still manually telling your clients what to do. You're just telling all of them what to do at the same exact time.
Yes.
And that's where, people have complained about this for a really long time, and nothing has ever been done about it, because it's like, well, in kind of the old style of CCP thinking, if you don't like it so much, maybe you need to do that yourself to compete. Like, if it's
that's so new player friendly.
If it's so unfair, then why don't you go get Isboxer and load up 18 clients and go to town? Like, you have that
Give
option.
us more money, you big baby.
Right, yeah. Sub more accounts.
That's exactly what it is.
And so now, for whatever reason, and we don't really know, there wasn't a lot of explanation as to the shift in thinking here, but for whatever reason now that's no longer acceptable. You cannot input broadcast anymore. That's not to say that you can't use Isboxer, though. Isboxer is still a pretty useful tool. Laz uses it on the streams all the time still, just for window management, just for like managing your different clients and being able to switch between them when you need to and all that kind of stuff. But I could see this, if they're able to do anything about it, which is the other half of this. Same thing with botting. Like, bots change all the time. Like, the way that you detect bots changes all the time. And sometimes they've been better at it, sometimes they've been worse at it. The point being, though, input broadcasting being a bannable offense does not equate to nobody can input broadcast anymore. Those are not nearly the same thing.
They seemed very adamant about stating that in the post as well that they made on the forums about, because people were like, well, if this means this, doesn't that mean that? And they were like, no. So
right. And, I mean, there's all kinds of caveats with this, and I'm sure like it's going to be difficult to detect this at times. That's a lot of stuff that you got to go through to try and find these guys, but that will continue to do it because they will. Because really, who wants to manually tab between 18 clients to go mining? Like,
yes,
a lot of the uses of this stuff were fairly innocuous. Like, when I've always thought about Isboxer in the past, and input broadcasting in particular, I've always thought of like one person controlling an 18-person bomber gang and just going to town on people.
That's a fairly recent development, the past couple of years.
And I wonder if that doesn't have something to do with it, because Isboxer has almost always been around in some fashion, but used in much less combat orientated situations. Like it's for mining.
20 Mackinaws. Yeah.
And some sort of industry thing. When I think of, people using those sorts of things, exactly what I think of. I don't think of the bombing runs. I more think towards someone using it to mine or to like do incursions or to do or like just ways of making money essentially.
Right.
Which I mean, in some ways it's a little unfair that like some guy that happens to just be a millionaire in real life could just have like 40 million accounts if he really wanted to, and just do everything, and then everyone else is like, okay, I'll just make my piddly 20 million ISK every 20 minutes, no big deal.
I remember one specific circumstance when they changed ice to no longer appear in belts where it was infinite into anomalies. The solo or small gang ice miners absolutely loathed the multi-boxers, the ice boxers, because they would show up once there was an anomaly, come in there with 20 Mackinaws, hoover up the whole thing, then log off all 20 clients until their one scout found the next ice anomaly when it spawned. So there's literally no space for solo players, essentially single account players.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's not a bad move. I don't know how positive of a move is. It's kind of it strikes me as something neutral. This is we're talking about like 0.5%, if even that, of the player base ever availed themselves of this option in the first place. So maybe something in particular cropped up that they needed to target, and so they had to adjust their policies in order to go after something. We don't really know. They didn't really explain any of that. But ISBox are still around. I mean, if you want to use it, it's just you can't input broadcast anymore. So it's still a fairly robust way of managing a bunch of different clients, and it's useful in that regard. Other than that, I mean, there's not been too much else going on the CCP front, except just today we received confirmation that CCP Greyscale is no longer with the company.
Yes. And we don't know exactly the circumstances, do we?
And that's literally it. And I found it interesting, and this could be totally off base, like not saying to draw any conclusions off of this, but when we sent a similar email to CCP to confirm the departure of CCP Veritas, we received back a pretty robust comment that said, "We're very sorry to see Brian go, blah, 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 blah." When we sent off this email, we got literally, "I can confirm that Matt Woodward is no longer with the company."
Huh.
Interesting.
One sounds like, "I'm leaving. Bye. Sorry, guys. There's better stuff over there." And the other one sounds like, "Get out. We don't want you here anymore."
A little bit. Again.
Obviously, none of us know. This is all just us like talking out of our ass. But that's unfortunate that that's the way that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, like, for better or worse, Greyscale had been a part of the company for a really long time. He'd been there for
7 years now.
Yeah, 7 years. And again, for better or worse, like, he was an integral part of a lot of design decisions that have impacted EVE, and some of them have been good.
After 7 years dealing with EVE players, everyone's going to hate you for some decision you've made. That's just a given. But, he's maybe more controversial among nullsec people. He has always been sort of a driving force behind the idea that nullsec is too easy, that jump freighters and force projection and anomalies that you could run with like a single vexor or whatever, all these things, it was way too easy to generate ISK in nullsec. And since the CSM is almost always all nullsec or very close to nullsec dominated, there's always been a lot of conflict there.
Well, not only that, but like the fact that nullsec is the big push right now, right? Like that's the overarching theme. That's what they're trying to improve on. In its
Greyscale, to his credit, was behind the long distance travel changes of Phoebe as part of a team.
For what it's worth, all the changes that have come out, to change force projection, to change those things about nullsec too. I mean, not necessarily, because I don't agree that making money in nullsec is easy. As even though I have been playing for 3 years, I'm still a relatively newer player. Like getting into EVE and getting into PvE aspects of EVE in nullsec is not easy, especially when you have pizza knocking at your back door every 5 seconds. This is in test. Pizza was always like, "Oh look, a ratter. Let's go kill it. It's so cute. And I would be like, well, I guess I'm not making ISK today. That's
Yep,
nice.
time to dock
So
up.
I mean, I don't as a single player making ISK for my own personal use. I don't think that making ISK is very easy for especially for newer-ish players in nullsec. So I think that in some ways he's right, and in some ways he's a little off the mark. But I do agree with most of what he's saying. You know that it needs to be a little bit more difficult for nullsec entities to truck along so that nullsec doesn't get stagnant, which I think is the idea he's working on.
Was
working on. Sorry.
That's the thing. That's the thing that is kind of puzzling. Is things seem to be going in his philosophical direction at the company. So for him to not be with the company at this point in time is a little weird.
And he's been there for 7 years. He obviously doesn't have any problem with living in Iceland. He, is famously enthusiastic about the game. It makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder a little bit as to what's going on there. But overall, I don't think, sadly, not too many tears are going to be shed for CCP Greyscale. Definitely not on the level that like Veritas or Soundwave or anybody those guys got, but
still one of the last of the old guard for sure.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. It's like it's almost as if they are slowly but surely clearing out anybody who has been there beyond X amount of years.
Making room for innovation is always a good idea. Making room for younger minds or newer minds to put newer hands in the pot. Yes, those are positive things sometimes.
And the gaming industry does have a turnover rate. Like there is a pretty well established turnover rate. 7 years at a game company is actually kind of fucking impressive.
I know that.
In the grand scale of things, people don't tend to entrench themselves anywhere for that long. So
I got you.
It is what it is, I guess. He's out. There is a job posting if anybody's interested for a game designer at ccpgames.com/jobs, I guess, /en/jobs.
Maybe.
For English. I don't know what other languages they're looking for. But yeah, so there's a job posting. That does, I did confirm, though, that predates Woodward's departure from the company, so it's not as if you are replacing...
that's a shame.
You're not replacing Grayscale if you
I wanted to
get
his
job.
office and everything. Dang.
Yeah.
Man.
They may still stick you in there, but I don't know what it would smell like after 7 years.
Wow.
After 7 years of living somewhere, come on.
Shots fired.
No, Dewey.
Just saying. Not saying anything bad about him.
What if he kept it clean?
You don't know. We won't go there. We'll just change.
It's not typical, but you don't know.
Speaking of force projection changes, how's that been working out in nullsec? It seems
amazing. It's so exciting.
It seems like things are actually happening. Like and Nystrik, I believe you are the person to tell us what those are, because every week you have to sit down and listen to the Mittani talk about this crap for an hour straight. So good job. Thank you for doing that. And just give us the long and short of that, of what's going on in nullsec.
I'd just like to start it off by saying that when Phoebe was announced and, the force projection, jump fatigue things and the light year jump changes were initially announced, I was like, so are super fights just not going to be a thing anymore? That was my initial reaction, was I guess no more super fights, GG, that's unfortunate, because that's what... when big fights happen, Asakai as an example, that's everyone's like, oh, this is such a cool fight. Oh my God, I'm going to go play this game. Right. So I was like, oh, those are dead. That's unfortunate. But head tack proved us wrong in and of itself. But there are other, supers are dying left, right, and center all over space, which is very exciting. Especially on the heels of that big, the This Is Eve video. Which is going to greatly aid in the retention of these players for CCP. Because usually, you jump into the game after a big Asakai fight and then nothing else really happens of note. Yeah. But you've got, in the same day, you've got NC Supers getting killed by Elite PvP CFC Squad. That doesn't really exist. That's what they'll tell you. They don't exist. You have the head... What? What? Okay. You'll have the head tack fight, which initially began between PL and Brave. You've got Brave baiting PL supers. a few weeks ago we had Brave escalating into PL into supers, forcing them to throw supers at fights. So, I mean, we've got battles happening literally all over the map. And Alikchi, I know that you wrote the article for the head tack fight and were very like engrossed in what was going on. So I don't know if you want to talk about how exciting that was.
Well, just to hook in with what you were saying, Brave has gotten I think the lion's share of the This Is Eve newbies who want to go straight into nullsec. Their numbers have gone up like, I think they've gotten 3,000 new characters in their primary corporation since This Is Eve came out. It's insane. And the FCs for Brave were talking about at Head GP how, they'd have pilots there in pre-fitted Molluses, T1 frigates, that couldn't even use their sensor dampeners. Like, they were training the skill to use them as they were out on the field.
That's
wonderful. It's adorable. It's fantastic. They had big fleets full of these guys, on the field with the PL super caps, which is really something that, only like CFC and test members and that sort of thing got access to. And even then, that was, after a few weeks of play at least.
Yeah.
For newbies.
Definitely not days.
Yeah, like
exactly.
Hours
3 or 4,
or the day of, yeah. But yeah, Head GP, I think, as if you read the article or watched the fight, one other notable thing is that BL took 4 hours going across. I think they came from Venal, all the way from Venal down through basically the right side of the map, through Vale, into Scalding Pass, finally into Ketch for the Head GP fight. It took them 4 hours. They brought,
How long would that have taken, like, before?
10 minutes.
20 minutes?
Tops.
10 or 20 minutes,
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
They'd already have their portals into Ketch already. Did I just call them portals? Really? You know what I mean.
It's acceptable.
Yeah, the Sinos, that's the word. They'd already have their Titans sitting ready in posses and Sinos across the map.
I didn't know what you were
to
saying
get
until you said Sino. I'm like, portals? When the fuck did
Sorry.
they add portals to this
Sorry,
game?
my brain just...
bullshit.
My brain just... My bad. But you know what I mean. Like, before then, they'd have everything set up so that people could just Sino chain. And in 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, they'd be there. The longest part of that would be form up.
Yeah. And that there's, like, strategic ways now because, as the fight was going on, everyone knew BL was coming. Everybody was running locators. Where's Elo Knight right now? Are they in Scalding Pass yet? Do you think they're like 10 jumps away, 20? So now there's like a timing element to fights and what can we get away with before the reinforcements get here? That sort of thinking actually applies now as opposed to, a super cap's tackled, everyone from Eve arrives in 10 minutes.
And it's fun too because now you've got the chance of interception. CFC actively tried to find BL's fleet and cut it off.
Right.
I don't think they were successful.
No, I believe they slowed them down a little bit.
Yeah.
But no catches. Still, I'm sure Laz was happy with the slowing down that he got.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I agree with what you're saying. Like, it's interesting that you have to think about these things now. Where is this fleet? Can we intercept it with a smaller fleet and maybe even just bubble it to slow it down? So we get maximum damage on this other fleet, or how long do we have if that's not an option to blow stuff up, get out if we have to?
Yeah, so I think we're starting to see the ramifications of Phoebe in that sort of positive strategic way, while at the same time we're still getting big fights, super cap escalations. PL brought in, what was it, like 15 Titans and NC Dot matched them, and
just
it was
DD'd everything.
Yeah, it was a nice light show like we thought we'd never see again. So I gotta say, hats off. It seems to be working for what it's worth, at least right now. Does kind of suck, I guess, sometimes for, like if PL and NC Dot can always escalate on Brave and, BL, they'll always win. But on the other hand, PL lost a Titan. Brave and Black Legion didn't lose any Titans. That's something.
And PL lost supers, I think it was a day or two before that as well, to a Brave/Black Legion bait, which took a while to hatch, but eventually they managed to get some supers out of PL and take them down. So I mean, people are using their supers. People are throwing supers at fights still. So it's exciting to see that those things, even if it takes 4 hours, won't change.
Yeah, you can always count on the insanity of Eve players to get those kills.
does anybody else get the impression that like somehow like in this universe that exists in nullsec, we are seeing like it's like looking back at the creation of the universe. If you're a goon, like you're looking back and you're like, wow, that's us like years ago, and look at they're fighting them, and like everyone's saying they're always going to be beaten by them, but oh no, look, there's a trap, you know, here's something else happening, and they're actually gaining some momentum. Brave in particular against PL and NC Dot. So it's kind of weird because like obviously the analogy isn't perfect, like they're not exactly the same, but you're seeing in a way a very similar event taking place after a lot of people assumed that could never take place again, that nullsec was super stagnant, that this was never, no one's ever going to get any traction here, like this is just the way the universe is now, like the CFC and then PL and N3. You know, PL wants to
and
play
they
with
shuffle
them
their cards around, but it's the same cards.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're kind of seeing that happen again. Like you're seeing a relatively new entity that didn't exist. Like 2 years ago, I think. How old is Brave? Like a year and a half, 2 years?
Something like 2 years, I think.
They came. I think they were first forming as Test was going out the door.
Yeah, it was around that time. So obviously that would stick out in your mind. The great part of the great part of this, though, in general, is just that it's showing, and obviously this is almost completely apart from the force projection changes that we have seen so far, but it is still possible for a newer entity to come together and just kind of come out of nowhere, storm the gates of nullsec, and like all that puppy speak that everyone likes to throw out there and say is impossible. It's happening right now, you know.
I mean, to kind of be the voice of doubt here now, just to be a jerk. I mean, yes, it's exciting to see that. You know, it's exciting. It's always exciting to see new entities, especially entities with newer players, jump in and be like, "Oh, I can do this! Look at me, mom!" Which is amazing and adorable, and I love it. And that's part of the reason that I stuck with Test for so long, was just because I loved having new players come in and be excited to play. And it didn't matter that they were losing every ship; they just kept reshipping and throwing ships at stuff, and let's just keep going. It's okay. Eventually, we'll wear them out. And sure, that works until you get to the point where I guess we're tested and, you know, tried to put on the big boy pants and unfortunately didn't go where they intended to. And I mean, Test had momentum, a lot of momentum before we fell apart. And then we fell. And I'm hoping that Brave doesn't walk the same path.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right.
And that's the hope. But they have momentum. They have a chance to do something interesting and fun and new, but at the same time, there is a very dangerous path that they're walking, and they have to be careful to balance it better than other entities have done in the past.
They have, I don't know, just like from casual observation alone, like obviously I'm not real stuck into this stuff because I'm too busy doing other things, but just from casual observance alone, they seem to have a much better attitude. Maybe that comes from leadership, maybe it doesn't. I don't know really where it comes from, but they seem to have a better attitude that leans them more towards like baby goons versus baby Test.
I agree.
In the past, like they seem to have, I think their chance of succeeding on a long time scale is much greater than Test was back then.
Yeah, I mean, even at the end, Test's philosophy was we're bad and that's okay, and Brave's philosophy is more we're bad and that's okay because we'll get better.
Right.
Whereas Test's philosophy was just, we're bad, we accept that we're bad, and that's part of our gimmick, and we will always be bad. And when we tried to get better, it seemed to kind of fall apart at the seams, which is unfortunate.
Well, because it did appear as if, not to go on too much of a tangent, but it did appear as if some people took pride in that, in a literal sense. Like, we're always going to be bad. Why are you trying to be good? And
that was
I lost 10 Tau Wars today.
And it's like, you know, that's not going to lead to success. Like you start out bad, and
you got to be aspirational.
Goons themselves will say like, yeah, we're still bad. It's like, fuck, you know, the average person's like, yeah, I'm bad at this game.
But they figured out, Test grabbed so much Sov so quickly while they were still in the we suck and that's okay and we're just happy being bad at the game mentality. But I do agree with you that there's a difference in mentality there that gives Brave a chance at long-term success like Goons had in the beginning that unfortunately Test didn't quite have. So
yeah, and I think that, I mean, there's not an easy way to get that across because you have to know a lot of context and history of the game and stuff. But that, if you could figure out a way to do that, would make a really great trailer. Like, you know, even here in the last couple of years, we had a completely new entity come forward and start carving out their own niche here in a game where everyone says that's not possible. Similar to like what they're doing on an individual level with the players, that they're just hoovering up all these new players, and they're just like, here's a Mollis. What's a Mollis? I don't know. Just fucking
here's a fit. Just go fly it.
That way. Go.
Just listen to your FC and go.
Here's train this skill, inject it right now, and in 20 minutes you'll be okay. Like that kind of mentality is just, it's really great to see in the game. Didn't really know that we'd ever see that again either. So this year seems to have been one of a lot of transition, but proving a lot of old assumptions wrong. You know, and we can kind of reflect a little bit on the year now because it is December, and we've only got I think 1 or 2 more episodes before the end of the year.
That's right.
Yeah, so 2014 is almost done, and we have more to talk about on that. I'm going to spring some stuff on you guys, but it's not in the notes.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
But
I'm hiding in my plate. I need to hide. I don't like surprises.
But you can look back and see that, you know, there was a lot of doubt about CCP because a lot of people are leaving, a lot of employees, prominent employees, leaving the company, primarily going to Riot in Dublin.
Feeder Corp.
Feeder Corp. Definite feeding status here. There was a lot of doubt about that. There was a lot of doubt about even Siegel taking the reins as executive producer. There is doubt about this, 6-week patch cycle that they've kind of latched on to. There was even doubt about whether or not they could even make another trailer again, because how do you make a trailer without an expansion to tie it to?
Yep.
Yeah. And just
they're slowly knocking all those
left
doubts
and,
out.
Left and right, there's discernible improvement. They're getting better. They're addressing a lot of concerns that players have, and they're just kind of getting it done. Like it's impressive the amount of doubt there was at the beginning of the year versus what now exists.
Yeah.
You know, people seem to be
Eve
up.
Again.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing Eve again like a month ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was going to be a thing that I ever said in my life. For any reason. So
I'm excited to get back into it. I really want to play now. It's weird. What?
I'm actually really excited. I'm going to check out some of these frigate-only wormholes that are coming in tomorrow. I think that should be the goal for the Friday roaming stream. We'll get back to that this Friday, and we'll kind of hit that up.
Fantastic.
All in all, I think that it about wraps it up for Eve stuff. We do have a couple other things to tick off the list here, though. Also, just today, just hours before this podcast started, actually, Sony Online Entertainment announced the early access release date for their new zombie game, H1Z1. And I don't know if either of you are interested in that.
Would I be interested in it? Absolutely. Did I know it was a thing until just now? Nope.
Okay. Great. Wonderful.
You didn't put it in the notes.
I know.
If I would have had time to look it up, I would have looked it up.
I mean, it literally happened at 3:30 this afternoon. So.
Oh, okay. I was at work. Yeah. Never mind.
But yeah, so they announced that. I used to work at SOE. I'm restricted in what I can say about that. But I have played it for a long time, actually, before it even was a thing. And I can definitely say that I'm pretty excited to see where it's at. The launch date is now January 15th. It's going to be $20 early access. There's going to be a higher price tier. And this is the stuff where I'm kind of not sure about what this stuff is. There's a higher price tier that's going to have additional benefits to it that they're going to outline details on in a little bit later. I don't know if they addressed that in their Q&A stream right after the announcement on Reddit or not. But $20 minimum gets you in the door to play this game. It's obviously based upon the PlanetSide 2 engine. Like that's well known. It's going to be one can assume that it will be of a higher scale than DayZ or Rust or anything along those lines, because all of those games are very, like, they're server based and they're very small caps. It's like 50 people is the most I've seen on a DayZ server ever. And you will likely get more people than that in an H1Z1 server. It's got crafting, you know, people can run around, shoot each other. Like, it's survival with, you know, free for all PvP, all the things you would expect. It's a lot like DayZ. It's just on a different engine that can support more players, and the hope is that it can be a bit more stable and a bit less all hacked up by cheaters than DayZ was. And they're pretty upfront about the comparisons. They understand that, you know, people think, and somewhat rightly so, that this is like the only reason they're making H1Z1 is because DayZ was such a success. And that's not really a bad thing. Like, that's okay to go try and make a game that obviously a lot of people are interested in and put your own spin on it. So January 15th, that's going to be coming out.
Early access, right?
For early access.
Yes.
Okay.
Originally, like, the original announcement came earlier this year of this game's existence. And originally, John Smedley, the CEO for SOE, said 4 to 6 weeks at that time, way early this year.
Oh, wow.
Everyone seems very happy that they did not hit the 4 to 6 week time frame, and that they took their time and got a lot of features in and fixed a lot of things before putting this out for people to actually buy. I think people, if you're kind of down on SOE, or if you're down on zombie games in general, this may surprise you in a lot of ways. I think it's a pretty solid offering from what I've seen of it. We've done live streams of it before. The Matani live streamed it live from the SOE headquarters here in San Diego. You know, it looks pretty good.
I have a question. Is it scary zombies or like killing floor zombies?
I don't know.
I think it leans more towards killing floor. Killing floor is like Night of the Living Dead lumbering type zombies.
Am I going? You saw how I freaked out during the house, or maybe you didn't.
Well, you may just freak out. I don't know. You seem to have a very low tolerance for horror related things.
Yep.
I mean,
I have an issue with it being a lingering, like, is it going to get me? Where is it? Oh my god, I don't know where it is. That's my issue with horror stuff.
I think at first this game will have that effect on people naturally. Like, it was the same thing with DayZ. If you played DayZ right at the beginning, you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know where the zombies were going to spawn and all this stuff. It's probably going to be a bit more dynamic than DayZ, but over time you're going to get used to it. You're going to get used to, like, the environment that you're operating in. They'll become more and more of just an obstacle in your way, I would imagine. Just like in DayZ, DayZ actually eventually just devolved into this is a PvP game.
Yeah,
and
zombies are just in the way.
There happen to be zombies, like, that gnaw on your leg every once in a while.
That's awesome.
No big deal. I don't know that this is going to go that far. You know, I personally hope it doesn't. Like, I would really like to see zombies that are a bit more robust and a bit more dynamic and pose a constant threat, you know. But we'll see.
More than a nuisance.
More than a nuisance would be great, because after all, it is the apocalypse, and these things, like, ruin the whole world.
Yeah.
It would be kind of disappointing if, like, 5 hours into the game, you're just running around, like, dual akimbo shotguns or whatever. It's just like, whatever. You know, fucking zombies.
Like the first iteration of Rust, where you, like, chopped down a tree and crafted an MP5 out of it. That was great.
You just hit a rock with another rock, and then you go to this thing and you have an MP5. I like that tech tree. It's great.
Yeah, my favorite.
All you need is the blueprint, bro. It's easy.
But yeah, so that's coming out January 15th. We just found that out literally hours before the podcast. I think that's going to be the last big announcement of any kind of game that we're interested in before the holidays, I would imagine. We only have, I don't know how many days that is, 17 days till Christmas. And typically the week of Christmas, so like in 14 days, game companies the whole industry kind of just shuts down.
Yeah, like there's no reason to...
Everyone goes home and enjoys Christmas and New Year's, and then they'll be back January, whatever, 3rd, whatever it is.
To get ready for November, December releases
You're
for the
right.
next year.
to start the cycle all over again. But yeah, so I think that was the one big announcement. The other thing that I did want to get to before we wrap up the official portion of this show is it is coming up towards the end of the year, and I wanted to ask both of you what your personal game of the year is for 2014.
Okay. You want to go
Well,
first?
not any of the Halloween games I played.
I'll go first to give you guys some time to
Yes,
think.
please.
Okay.
So a lot of games have come out this year that I was really excited about. First, it was Watch Dogs. Like, I really loved everything I saw about that game up until the moment that I started playing it. And then not to say that it's a bad game, it's just not the best game that came out this year. It had its problems. I had technical problems on PC. Like, I went out and got a PS4 just to play this game. Went through it in a relatively short amount of time. And it's an Ubisoft game. Like every Ubisoft game is. Assassin's Creed and Far Cry and Watch Dogs is now one of these where in order to unlock new parts of the map, you climb a tower and sync up, and then
That's hella boring.
and then
It seems like a lot of busy work. Like you zoom
Yeah.
out and the mini map is just covered in dots of things that you need to do.
right, but not really, because like I didn't do any of that shit and I beat Watch Dogs. Like I just skipped all of that bullshit after a certain point. But yeah, so I mean that was an entertaining game for sure, but definitely not game of the year. So it wasn't that. The other game I was really excited about was Destiny.
Me too.
And then Destiny came out, and I played.
And
I
you
played,
were still excited for like
played
3 weeks.
I played a lot of Destiny. I will say
Yeah.
I played a lot more than I think most people did. I got a character up to like 28, I think. Went through the whole gear grind with Light. I actually kind of like that system of progression where it's based upon your armor and you have to level up your armor, and your armor has its own skill trees almost. Like you can unlock different abilities via your armor or your skill tree, and like it's got a lot of stuff going for it. The big mark against it was the lack of variety. It was old Russia on Earth, the moon, Mars, and Venus. And that's it. And each one of those is just one big map with, certain sub-regions in it that you would spend an X amount of time in. When you go back to do your strikes or whatever, they take place in the same exact maps. Like, it's no unique maps up until you get to the raiding part, which I never did because there's no matchmaking in raiding. So you have to actually know 5 people who are still playing this fucking game and are playing it at a time when you can play it
Ooh.
in order to go do the raid. And they all have to be somewhat competent because the raid content was actually really well done and required thought, initially at least. So
Yeah, that part, like, if you actually got to the end and
Yeah.
did the raids, Destiny was fine.
yeah, and that's what I've heard from everybody, but it's like you're talking about a lot of time investment before you get to.
Yep.
It was very typically like an MMO in that regard. Like it's you do your level grind, you get up there, and then you can learn how to play the game. And it's what's the come on, guys, like
Yeah.
yeah. So
Busy work game number 2.
So
Work
then,
Game number 2.
how do you feel about the recently announced expansion for Destiny?
I didn't get it.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Fair enough.
That's how I feel.
Moving on.
That's how I feel about that. I didn't get it. So yeah, so there's that game. There were some other indie titles, and I always had this problem. Like at the end of every year, like for the last couple of years, I've been asked to think about what's my favorite game of the year, and it's really hard to remember anything that came before like September at this point in time. So like Watch Dogs stands out simply because it's Watch Dogs. There's a lot of hype surrounding it, but I know I've played tons of other games that were good, but I mean, I guess it says something about them that they didn't stick out.
Right.
Luftrausers was one indie title that I'm not sure if it actually came out this year, or if it actually came out last year, and I just bought it later. But that was a pretty good game. But essentially what it comes down to is Shadow of Mordor versus Dragon Age Inquisition. And
2 very recent titles.
yeah, and that's, it has its reasons, because, I mean, it is fresh in my mind. I played probably 30 to 40 hours of Dragon Age Inquisition over the Thanksgiving holiday because I was stuck at my in-laws and I didn't have very good internet. So, yeah,
Rip.
that's what I did for like 5 days. And then also played a similar amount of Mordor over the last couple of weeks for similar reasons. And I have to say, like, at the end of it all, my game of the year, my personal game of the year, is Dragon Age Inquisition, because Mordor has its problems. The combat isn't all that great. It's very Assassin's Creed-like, and Assassin's Creed combat has never been its strongest suit.
Right.
Specifically the parry window. So, like, I'm playing on PS4, and, like, you have to hit triangle to parry an attack, right? That triangle appears above, like, an enemy's head for a really long time, like, for, like, a solid second and a half, which in combat's a pretty long time. But the actual window in which you can hit that fucking button is, like, a fraction of that.
Yep.
So, like, I'm just fucking sitting there hitting triangle, like, I'm trying to parry, and I'm just dying all the time. It's really frustrating. Eventually you get the hang of it. Like, you get into the groove of the game and you understand what it is expected of you. But that's kind of I mean, the Nemesis system is great. Like, the world is great. All that stuff is cool. But just the combat really kind of blows in its own way. So, yeah. So I came down to Dragon Age Inquisition and, like, has to be my game of the year. Spent a lot of time with it. I haven't beaten it yet, which it's an extraordinarily long game. Bless you.
That was I tried not to make a verbal noise, sorry.
I thought you were crying or something, like, oh my god, I can't stand what Dave's saying.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I came down to. The world is really great. The game itself is really good at expressing the lore to you in tidbits that make you want more. Like, I actually found myself trying to look and learn more about the world of Dragon Age and, you know, Thedas and the Chantry and all this crap. That's ultimately irrelevant because all video games are irrelevant at the end of the day.
Wow. Buzzkill.
It's very nihilist. Yeah.
Let's shut it down. Just shut this down. We've been wasting our time.
Why are we even doing this?
I've got my True Detective soundboard ready.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it comes down to the world is great. The classes are varied enough that you are interested in them. You have a lot of different types of companions, and the storyline itself is pretty tremendous. Like, what you come into the game thinking is going to be the main storyline that's going to carry you for like 40 hours, and you're kind of like, I don't know if that's actually enough. There's probably going to be a lot of busy work here. That ends up being like 10 hours, and then you're done with that, and there's a much bigger storyline. Like, there's a big twist and all this stuff, and they do it super well. It's probably the best I've seen in a long time. So that would be mine. So now that you guys have had time to think, let's go with Alikchi first. I think he's more prepared.
Alrighty, let's see here. Well, there's a few candidates here. Like you, I definitely didn't. It's hard to remember the stuff that I played at the beginning of the year. Like, I think Saints Row 4 came out this year, and that feels like a decade ago at this point.
Did it?
I think so. Early in the year.
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it did.
It feels like forever ago, and I remember definitely enjoying that. But, you know, these single-player campaign games, I don't play them that much. When I do, I enjoy them, but then they sort of pass from my mind. I really enjoyed Wolfenstein: The New Order. That was a first-person shooter that I actually finished the campaign of. And these things, you know, like a Call of Duty or whatever other similar games, I don't have the patience for that stuff anymore if it's just gunplay. But the gunplay was so good, and the story and setting and everything was just well done. But it's not a candidate for the game of the year because I only, you know, spent 20 hours on it, and I haven't touched it in months. So I mean, think
20 hours is a pretty big investment of time. I mean, that's not insignificant.
Yeah. It's a long campaign, and it's a good game, but I don't think about it when I think about games that meant something to me this year. I think about games that I play on a regular basis. And when we get to that, it comes down to just a few, basically. And those are World of Tanks, Europa Universalis 4, and XCOM with the Long War mod. XCOM Long War, not my favorite, but probably only because I've only started playing it in the past 2 or 3 months. It really is a reawakening of the game that came out in 2012. I'm going to be playing it probably forever.
Forever's a long time, my friend. That's
okay. I'll probably play it until I die. But
Okay.
hey, I
Shit.
just scaled it back considerably.
Shit. Okay.
All right.
Alrighty
But
then.
no, it's genuinely fantastic. I love tactics games. I love strategy games. EU4, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Paradox strategy game. But it's such a wonderful mod, such a wonderful game. And I probably spent so many hours playing it. Elite Dangerous probably would be my game of the year if they hadn't done so many wipes. I'm hesitant to play when
No
they
more
keep
wipes though.
no more wipes now. Yeah, so after this, I'm jumping in basically. But it's so beautiful. The sensation of flight is amazing. What you can do is amazing. It feels like the sort of video game I imagined I would be playing when I was 9. It's fantastic. There's not really much else to say about it. It's really enjoyable. The scope is epic. The scale is epic. But I think my game of the year, and this is going to be something that I don't think either of you will play or understand, has got to be Europa Universalis 4. It's
I
the
wanna
game
play
I've spent
that.
the most time in. Yeah. And
I can understand that though. I mean,
yeah.
Crusader Kings does it more for me than the EU
Mhm.
series, but like, yeah, I mean, I can understand that. It's a lot of time spent in that game.
A lot of time spent, and it's very satisfying, I think. I'm a old school like Risk nerd strategy game fan. I love painting the map whatever color I've chosen. And it's a really engaging experience now. They've gotten a new lead developer. The latest patch, Art of War / expansion DLC, is practically Europa Universalis 5. They've added 900 new provinces to the whole world, which basically means that before, if you were playing as, say, the Inca, quick background, it's a strategy game set in like 1444 to 1820. You can play as any nation in the world. Before, Europe was well modeled. Everywhere else was just kind of meh. You pretty much, if you were like the Aztecs, you sat around for 100 years waiting to get screwed over by some Spaniards. Now there's actually things to do, and it's opened up the whole world in a lot of interesting and fun ways. And it's a personal project because I can mod that thing to hell. So I've been enjoying it a lot. And I think that's probably my game of the year, if only because I've been sinking so much damn time into it.
All right then, and I think we already know the answer to Nystrik's game of the year, which is why I left her for last because it's really easy and we could just wrap this show up.
It's not
Obviously,
Arcade.
Aww.
I want it to be. I want it to be good.
and rip the guts
No.
out of that joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I want it to be a good game, and I'm sad that it's not.
So what's your game of the year then?
It's it's sad because there's not really any games that I've been excited about this year. There's a lot of games that were announced at E3 and stuff that I was like, ooh, yay! And then they've been pushed back to 2015. So a lot of those games that I thought would be game of the year, I don't get to play yet, which makes me really sad. Which brings me to a lot of, I guess, indie-ish games. Bastion was really good. Transistor was really good. This really silly game that you're going to be like, what is this? It's called Mount Your Friends. It's a lot of fun. It's really silly. Just Google it. I can't even explain it.
No, we
Just
probably
Google it.
shouldn't discuss such things on this
Yeah,
podcast. This
I'm
is
not
a
really
family-friendly podcast.
Yeah, no, it's a silly game. But I think I'm not even sure if the game came out this year. It's kind of tied between two because one I know came out this year, which is Divinity: Original Sin.
Yeah, that's
I finally got the chance to
Very
sit
good
down
game.
and play that, and I love it. I would never call League of Legends Game of the Year. EVE is not Game of the Year. Arcade is not Game of the Year. And although those are the three games that I end up sinking the most time into, aside from Terraria, which has almost 300 hours on it, I can't call any of them Game of the Year, sadly. But it's either that or Journey, which I actually think came out at the end of last year. and
Journey
not this
came
year.
out a while ago, I thought.
I thought it was I think it was last year. But Journey has been the game that when I think back to like a really good game, I think of Journey still from when I played it. I don't know. I can go back and play that game an infinite number of times, and I've done so, and it's just so It's so cathartic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you're starting to see a lot more games like that come out. Like, people are trying to approach this aesthetic of, a game doesn't have to be shoot guys. A
Right.
game doesn't have to be, fucking commit genocide or anything. Like, it can be a game of just relaxation and kind of like a journey. Like, it can just tell a story and you're fine with that. And in a lot of ways, it's really cool to have games like that. One of the other games that I always think of when people mention Journey, because I actually haven't played Journey, but is Proteus, which came out, I believe, last year
Yes.
on
Yeah, it
PC.
did.
And that's like, I mean, to be honest, it's hardly a game, right? Like, you don't really, there's no points. Like, you don't really do a whole lot in that game. Um, but it's just tremendous. Like, the aesthetic and the sounds and everything. Like, it's
It's
very,
a really memorable experience.
Yeah.
yeah, like if you've ever played that game, you'll always remember playing that game.
Yep.
Which is something that you can't say for a lot of fucking games. Like,
Yeah.
I think the only other games that and I can't even call them games of the year because they're re-releases.
that's the thing.
And there's been a lot of them, and I've literally loved every single one of them so far, except for like a few that launched on Nintendo.
Well,
But
like-
like, I've loved all the relaunches that Squaresoft/Enix has done for all their games. So
Also, like, Last of Us Remastered looks tremendous, and it's still The Last of Us. Like, it's still a tremendous game, which you
wonderful story.
which you could tell technically, or you could say is technically a game of this year because it is remastered and re-released on new consoles. GTA 5 on next-gen consoles is out technically this year, and so technically could be a really great contender for Game of the Year because it's still a tremendous game. Yeah, you start getting into remasters. I mean, everyone's kind of doing it at this point, but Halo: The Master Chief Collection,
It's apparently good.
I was hoping
Really?
I heard that it fell apart.
the matchmaking was all broken.
Yeah, that was. I heard that it was like great to relive the nostalgia, but exactly that. That the
Yeah.
matchmaking.
But yeah,
was,
I
like,
mean, I got an Xbox One for that game. Like, I got an Xbox One, I got Halo Master Chief, and I'm okay with that because I also ended up getting Forza from last year, Forza 5,
Yep.
which I didn't understand was such a great fucking game.
It's amazing.
And it's a really good game, so I'm glad I
Yeah.
got that. But it is also like just a nostalgia trip to go through, like, start up Halo 1, the campaign, and like, think about what life was like fucking a decade ago.
Well,
you
right,
know,
and that's what it is for me is like obviously I'm a huge JRPG fan. Like I love anything that Square has done. I love all the Final Fantasies. I love all the Kingdom Hearts, and they're remastering and re-releasing some of those. And those for me have been the games that I've sunk the most hours into. When I've originally played Final Fantasy X back when I was like 8 or 9. And I played it for years, and I kept playing it, kept unlocking things, and I think I had something like 300 hours on that game too. Like same with Terraria. So I played the absolute shit out of that game, and having those games come back and me being able to play it on my PS3 and redo it and relive the nostalgia for me is what makes them such memorable games. And same thing with Kingdom Hearts, the new remaster that came out on the 2nd of December. Like I can't wait to sink my teeth into that one too because I have 1.5, the remix remaster that I played to shit. So I mean, I love the nostalgia of a lot of the games that they're re-releasing, but I'm also really excited for a lot of the games that are coming out next year that were supposed to be this year that are going to come out next year, and I can't wait.
Yeah, so next year we have what? We have Evolve is what I'm primarily looking forward to at this point, but there's also Bloodborne. If you're into the Dark Souls type stuff, there's the
Dark
Order.
Souls was another good game. Order is the one I'm most excited for.
The Order. What else is still coming out next year?
Oh god, you want me to pull up a list?
The Division is technically supposed to come out next year. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but if it does, I'm looking forward to seeing what that game ends up being.
I'm
I'm
looking
looking
to
forward to
Homeworld
Heroes of the
Remastered.
Storm. Sorry, we both talked at the same.
Heroes of the Storm, I mean, people have had alpha access, beta access, whatever they're calling it, for so long now that it doesn't feel like a game that's coming out. It feels like game that I just can't I can't play yet for whatever reason. Like, it feels like a lot of people I know have that game and have played it. I played it at BlizzCon last year, but obviously it's going to have changed a lot in the last year. So yeah, I mean, there's that. Obviously, H1Z1. I'm actually genuinely excited about that game coming out pretty swiftly here. Um, GTA 5 on PC is coming out, which is like I have GTA 5 on PS4, and I'm kind of started working my way into that, but I'm kind of holding off, sort of, for the PC version because I would like to play that on PC, especially with the first person mode and stuff. Like that's just gonna be fucking bad news.
I'm also looking forward to the new Zelda game.
New Zelda
I'm always, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's even going to come out next year, but I'm looking forward to it. Same thing with Kingdom Hearts 3, which we've been waiting for literally fucking ever. And the fact that it's finally happening is like, I'm so excited. And I don't even know if it's coming out next year. What?
I said she's hyperventilating.
I am hyperventilating.
Calm down.
And I guess for me, I always go back to games like that, like the games that I played as a kid, or the games that I played when I was young. I always go back to their
super excited about the TIE Fighter re-release. That was my formative game this year. I played the shit out of that.
What's the remaster coming from? Shit.
Gearbox? Homeworld?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
All that, yes.
Yeah,
all those things
I'm
you just
very
said.
excited about that. Yeah. Yes. It's
Gods of War game was announced recently too, a new one, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's next year though, but that was announced recently.
And somebody just mentioned in the chat, and I can't believe I forgot this. No Man's Sky. I think I forgot it because I'm not sure if it's actually coming out next year. I don't know that they've put a date on it. Or if it is next year, I don't know when. But yeah, like No Man's Sky. Holy shit.
I forgot about that.
If there is a game that will like just destroy my entire life because I won't go to work, I won't show up for this show, like I won't do anything at all.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I'll just sit on my couch and become part of the couch at some point because fucking No Man's Sky. Every time I see something about that game, I just get like little chills and I'm just like, okay, yeah. All these other games, I'm just waiting. Like, all these other games are just like appetizers, you know, kind of munching on stuff.
Elite Dangerous is a palate cleanser.
Yes.
You know what? I'm actually also excited to see what finally comes out of Star Citizen.
Well, we don't know if it's coming in 2015.
I think it was announced that it's supposed to.
The thing is,
I mean, as much as I'm nervous about the launch and nervous about what it's going to be, I'm also at the same time very excited and hopeful that it's something good.
The thing with Star Citizen is that I think you can already start to see what it is. Like, the modules are out. Dogfighting's out, and they have some kind of FPS thing. I don't know if that's actually out or part of it is. You can see all the component pieces. The only thing that I think the thing that's going to come last is probably the overarching, like, universe in which you
it all functions together.
Plug these modules in, and like you go from place to place to enact the stuff in this module or whatever. And that I was excited about that game, but Elite Dangerous I think is going to be more Star Citizen than Star Citizen ever will.
Yeah.
That's the impression I get anyways.
That's some controversial opinion right there.
I don't think so. If anybody's played Elite Dangerous, like that's a fucking solid game.
I agree that it's a solid game, but a lot of people get very grr about Elite Dangerous being better than
and it's totally understandable. I mean, people have paid a lot of money, a lot of money, a lot of investment in time and energy spent, you know, posting on their forums. There's a whole community based around this game that doesn't really exist yet.
Yeah.
In any way, you got like little snippets of like tech demo, basically. You know, you can fly around in space now. And then 2 months later, oh look, we fixed it, so now you can actually fly around in space. So like, there's just, you know,
that is what happened.
People
are
really invested in it. It's totally understandable. If that's your thing, if that's your jam, and you can't wait for that to come out in some kind of playable format, good on you. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you keep up the faith,
the hope,
and the hope and the energy to keep wanting this game. But good on you if you do.
With Elite releasing in I think literally a week or less, my hype levels are so much higher. From what I've seen of Star Citizen,
I can see it in your demeanor.
Yeah, I'm getting taller. Yeah, but it's wow, your hype levels are fluctuating. But it really is something I'm genuinely excited about, and Star Citizen seems disappointing by comparison at this point. What?
was that?
What was that noise? Did anybody hear that?
Yeah, I did.
It must have come through my mic.
That minute came through your house.
Do you have a dog?
I thought it was.
They're playing
one of
Smash
Scaurus'
Brothers
children.
out there. That's what they're fucking doing.
I thought it was one of
I told them
Scaurus'
this mic
children.
was sensitive.
Okay, so we have 3 ultimate games of the year, right? We have Europa Universalis 4 was your final pick, right, Alikchi?
Mm-hmm.
And what was yours, Nystrik? Did we?
I said Journey, but I don't think it's a this year game. So
That's not
if
a
we
this
need
year
to go
game.
with this year game, it's Divinity: Original Sin.
Okay, Divinity. That's a
I
solid
genuinely
pick.
really like it. Yeah.
And then I picked Dragon Age. So that's
You went the traditional Dragon Age pick.
well, it was
That's a pretty
traditional.
diverse set,
I mean
think.
traditional by like it was all over like the news. Like this is gonna be game of the year.
The thing I love about this though is that none of these are spaceship games.
Well, Elite Dangerous
Or
isn't out
sci-fi
yet. Maybe
games
it would
in
have
any
been.
way,
Elite
actually.
might have been mine if it was out
Okay,
earlier.
honorable
the year.
mention to Elite Dangerous, I guess.
Yeah.
At the end of this.
Yes.
Okay, so unless we're missing anything, I think it's about time for us to take a break.
We didn't do my Arcade minute. No, I'm kidding. I'm completely fucking kidding.
So we're gonna go ahead and take a break.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take a break. I'm completely.
We'll get the Arcade Minute in overtime. So if you're watching
Yes.
live,
I
stay
already
tuned.
talked about it.
No, you have to do it again.
Okay.
So if you're tuning in live right now, if you're watching the stream right this second, stay tuned. We're gonna take a quick 5-10 minute break, refresh ourselves, and we're gonna come back for another about 20 minutes of discussion. We'll get Nystrik's Arcade Minute and any other detritus that we missed along the way. If you are not watching this live, you probably should. It's pretty fun. There's a lot of people in the chat, and overtime is where it starts to get really interesting. We'll take your questions and answer them the best that we can. So if you are able to tune in live, 7 p.m. Monday Pacific time, that is. That was all kinds of jumbled. That was really fucked up. That was really shitty.
I'll try that again.
Mondays,
Monday.
7 p.m. Pacific time.
If you have any questions or comments,
if you have any questions
TMC
or comments,
live at thematani.com.
I was getting there. Fuck it, man. God. We're getting there. Yeah, so TMC live at thematani.com. That'll hit up all 3 of us. If you have any comments, or you can leave it on the YouTube video, or you can leave it in the article. Lots of different ways to get a hold of us. We appreciate all of your input and validation for us even continuing to do this. It's much appreciated. I think that about wraps it up. So,
I think so.
Everybody hang on. We're going to be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. If you're watching this on YouTube, have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time.